Hello, viewers, and welcome to TradeFlock. Today we have with us Vivek Jhanjhri, who's the Senior Director, Global Customer Service Operations in Omnissa India Private Limited. For more than 2 decades, Vivek has been at the forefront of transforming global operations into strategic business engines. From helping shape India's GCC evolution to building customer centric organizations that drive growth, resilience, and enterprise value, Vivek has consistently demonstrated that operational excellence is not about scale alone, but about delivering measurable business impact. In our conversation today, we will discuss with Vivek about his journey, his life experiences, the changing responsibilities of COOs, and his future plans. So, welcome to the conversation, Vivek.
Thank you, Anamika. Very happy to be here and talking with you today.
Great. Vivek, let us start with understanding a little bit about you, your professional journey, and what, even after 20 years of work, what makes every day most interesting to you?
Well, I think it's been a long career so far, about 25 plus years now. And what really keeps it interesting for me, personally for me, is when I'm facing new challenges, I would say, new situations where you have to really recreate, reimagine, and really challenge your thinking and demonstrate leadership, demonstrate understanding of the business, demonstrate how the industry is changing, and kind of continue to make progress. I think that's really exciting. It's never static. It's never business as usual. It's always challenging you to go back and keep keep learning.
Mhm. So, when you say learning, failure is one of the most important, I would say, a stepping stone where you learn something most important, which success doesn't teach you. If you could highlight one of the failures that you encountered and which taught you a lesson which you still carry with you.
Sure. Uh, I think more failure, but a personal, for me to kind of tell you what I exactly mean, I have to really reflect on what I've been doing, right? So 25 years, I joined HP. Did some great work there in HP for about 12, 13 years, changed roles, did variety of things. I took a lot of learnings personally from that experience. And I've been really lucky that, at when the industry is at inflection point, I've got an opportunity to really be with the momentum and be with the change. So in about 2013, I got an opportunity to get into VMware. That's when the cloud era in the IT industry was really shaping up. The business models were transforming. So I've enjoyed all challenges. Of course, there have been failures along the way, accomplishing tasks, setting up teams, but none of that really, I would say, challenged me in a way wherein I started doubting my own ability. But what
Mhm.
really happened is is once I joined VMware, I did some great work, grew personally into leadership roles as well. But there was a phase in my career for, let's say, a decade, wherein I just felt I was not growing with the industry. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it was a really long phase. It was a decade. It was not 1 year. It was not 5 years. It was a decade and slightly more than a decade as well. The different reasons, different circumstances. A lot of things happened in that decade. We had a pandemic. Personally for me, we had acquisitions. We had spin-offs. A lot of things happened, and during that phase, when I really reflected, I'm like, what's really happening? Why am I not growing personally along with the industry, along with the companies? It
Mhm.
created a lot of self-doubt. It created a lot of anxious moments. There were days when, I was just wondering what else could somebody do as a leader to really get noticed and progress in the industry. Now, that for me, I wouldn't say failure. It was a phase. It was rather a long phase. There were times when maybe I lost self-belief. There were times when I was personally not very motivated. However, I did realize as a leader, I need to keep all that aside
Mhm.
and continue to lead the teams and the organizations that I led, showing up every day with my best self, giving my best self at work. I think that phase really taught me a lot. Firstly, personally as a person, to kind of stay calm, to kind of accept all these along the way. It happens to everybody in the career, and then it gave me an opportunity to really learn a lot during those times. If I have really changed my domain. I moved from sales operations to customer service. I'd never done that before. I moved
Mhm.
from a team leader to an individual contributor leader, really leading 300, 400 plus teams, to then being an individual contributor. Not many people probably have done that in the industry, but then really that phase made me kind of challenge myself every day and see how I can continue to be relevant, how I can continue to learn, how I can continue to contribute, and how I can continue to lead the teams that I've led with highest level of passion. Uh, I would say that's the phase in my career. Out of 25 years, that 10-year phase, I can call it a consolidation phase, but that was really challenging. And
Mhm.
the learnings that I got from that phase is far, far, uh, larger than the other 15 years where, I've continued to do great work and I've continued to grow personally as well.
Great. You just mentioned learning as one of the important aspects, especially with the changing times when the role of the operations leaders have been receiving a very, 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 whirlpool kind of an experience where their roles and responsibilities effectively change depending on the laws, policies within the country and organization and globally as well. So, looking at those aspects, if you have to describe about being an effective COO, what it means to you today, and uh, how is this role going to change in the coming times? Is there any expectation or a lens that you look through in the coming times where you see this role evolving further and integrating more into the decision-making process?
Absolutely, yes. See, as a CEO, there are two components a CEO should really focus on, and that's going to change dramatically as we
Mhm.
move forward in the industry. COO, I think they need to have a very strong execution lens. They're the ones who make a great strategy into a winning one. Uh, you could have really an amazing strategy, but if you don't execute as a organization, as a company, then it's of no good. So I think that's one trait of a COO that
Mhm.
is, uh, I think that's never going to change. It is really important for somebody to translate strategy into execution. That's number one. Number two, the COO also needs to have a lens of transformation. Uh, you're executing, you're winning, you are, profitable, you're growing, all that is great. But a CEO needs to have a lens in the industry in terms of what's changing and how should we evolve to be ahead of the competition and continue to serve the customer base and continue to grow as a company. So as you are very well aware, what's disrupting the marketplace currently is the AI technologies. I think it's amazing. It's very nascent right now. Everybody is trying to figure out how they could use AI in their area of work. And any CEO today, I think, needs to have a focus on that part, and how it is evolving and how it will shape the industry. As an example, in my own area of work currently, when I'm leading customer service operations, uh, you could use AI in multiple ways, but one needs to really figure out what is a win-win for the customer and for the organization as well. Let me give you an example here. I've seen many companies, I'm not going to name any, but I've seen many companies using AI and making customer support a very difficult and a painful experience for a customer. You you need support, you go through an AI and the AI does not have answers. It's just trying to deflect you, give you FAQs, give you recommendations how you could solve your problem. All the AI is doing is is moving the problem solving back to the customer themselves. Now, that's not an experience any customer wants to go through, right? So, are those companies using AI? Absolutely, yes. Are they using it the right way and making it a win-win for the customer and for the organization as well? Maybe not. And I think that's what is going to, shape the industry and define the industry. Everybody has AI technology available to them. How would you want to use it? That will differentiate you from the competitors and put you ahead of everybody else. I think
Mhm.
that to me would be the next couple of years, which is going to define this role and define how the companies really move forward and adopt this technology.
So it means more of a balancing between AI and the human element, where they have to, the human intervention should come in between the AI delivery, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Right?
See, as a customer, and I'm talking customer support right now because that's where I'm kind of thinking a lot about AI.
Mhm.
When a customer has an issue, all they care about is somebody should be able to solve it for them in a reasonable amount of time and with a fair bit of accuracy and understanding customer urgency and the impact and taking all of that into account to to respond with the right level of urgency. I think that's what a customer needs. Yeah.
True.
Now, if you throw in AI and the AI technologies not solving customers' ticket and just deflecting it
Mm.
or responding with curated scripts, it's it's not leaving a good flavor for the customer. I think that's where the human touch comes in, which is, you know, apply the human intelligence, empathy, and understand when and where you want to apply AI to solve the customer's ticket. Eventually, a customer does not care whether the ticket is solved by a virtual agent or by a human. All the customer needs is there's a good understanding of the situation, of their need, and their issue is resolved with empathy. I
Mhm.
think that's the balance that you were talking about. That's the balance that is required. And every CEO is going to be challenged with making sure that balance is there. Everybody wants to use AI to get greater efficiencies. Uh, but in the long run, it's just not about efficiencies. It's about efficiencies, it's about scale, and it's about making sure in the process the customer is not left behind. I think that is where the sweet spot really lies.
Yes. Uh, so a while ago, you were talking about the strategy and how CEOs are going to play an important role in creating that efficiency within the organization. So, talking about the CEOs, how often are they responsible for connecting the strategy with execution? And how do you ensure that the business priorities are actually translated into measurable outcomes across the organization, which you already have a history of delivering that?
Absolutely. I think that's critical and core to any operations leader, to be honest. Like I said, the key function of an operations leader or a CEO is translating strategy into execution.
Mhm.
I follow a very simple framework. It's done wonders for me. I call it simple. It's not really rocket science, which is being able to break the outcome that is expected into smaller KPIs for different functions, for different teams, for different departments, as you may call it. Okay. Once that is clear, once that clarity is there with the organization, like here is here is the outcome the organization or the company wants to achieve. Yeah. And how do I contribute to that? What's my role? How can I make that happen? And then to be able to break it into KPIs, which is measurable, uh, that ensures the entire company is working towards the same goal.
Mhm.
Different departments, different kind of work, some directly impacting the outcome, some indirectly impacting the outcome, but eventually a sum of whole is going to deliver the outcome that the company or the organization wants us to deliver. And that's why I call it fairly simple. It's not rocket science. The role of operations leader is to be able to translate the outcome into different, KPIs or objectives, as you may call it, to make sure there's alignment and everybody's working towards the same goal. Once that's done, then it's about being able to measure it, being able to course correct if you're not making progress, being able to improvise, being able to innovate, transform, whatever it requires. But at the end of the day, uh, you just got to keep it simple.
Do you see a challenge here when translating your strategies into the execution part of it? And especially when you work across all the departments. So, is there any challenge? And if you see that, how do you mitigate those challenges?
Well, the biggest challenge when you're doing this at a large organization, I think, is the cascading.
Mm,
I spoke about the strategic goal or priority being broken up into different KPIs. And in a large organization, there are layers, there's hierarchy. And the biggest challenge is to be able to translate when you cascade that large goal into smaller pieces across the departments. Is it really reaching everybody in the organization? Uh, how do you make sure that happens? If it does not, then at the end of the day, it may just become a set of activities a person is doing. Let me give you an example here. I look at customer support as uh, playing a huge part in growing revenue, protecting ARR, for the company. Now, if that is the strategic goal that a company has, which is making sure customer support function is protecting ARR and helping grow revenue in the future, what does it mean in terms of the support engineer who's actually handling a customer ticket? Now, for them, a ticket is a ticket.
yeah.
If they do not understand how their work is translating into protecting the revenue and growing the revenue for the company and making the company profitable and continue to grow, then I think that's where the gap arises. Then a lot of many of the engineers would focus on just solving tickets fast enough. And you may solve tickets and you may solve it fast enough, but did you make a contribution to help protect that revenue engine? And the moment you start thinking that, every person starts to expand their role, with their own imagination. So, it brings me to a great point where we are trying to create an integrated support framework in our organization. What does it mean? I spoke about, just handling tickets. Uh, what it means is then every person is able to reflect the ticket that they're handling and then understand, okay, why is this customer important currently? What is happening from a how's the engagement between customer and our account and sales team? Is there a large renewal coming up? Is there a new cross sell upsell opportunity being worked upon? I think the experience that a support engineer provides to a customer can really translate into really expanding and being able to sell more, because at the end of the day, support experience can make those decisions easier for the customer. The other point being, how can a support engineer translate customer issues and feed it back to the product team and say, you know what, these are top 5 customer challenges and why they are logging tickets with us. This is where the product is breaking. How can we fix it on the product so that there's lesser number of tickets, and hence the customers would love to continue to renew, would love to continue to expand and buy more, versus looking at a competitor. Now, here is the difference. The moment you are able to translate that goal into smaller KPIs for engineers, you'll find that they'll bring their imagination and contribute how they can help achieve that goal. So really, what is their KPI? That translation, it should not be lost in organization hierarchy. It's easy to say we want to grow our revenue, but what does it mean for the support engineer? They are not selling. How will they grow revenue? They are not making the product. How will they, help the company grow revenue?
Mhm.
So they need to make meaning of the work that they're doing and how it will impact the company's goals. And if that is done through the organization hierarchy, the message is not lost, the essence is not lost. You've just created, a team which is high on execution, which is high on making impact, executive level impact, versus just delivering their day-to-day jobs. I think that's the I would say the mantra here for success.
Great. You spoke about the mantra, but could you highlight the philosophy that drives you, and uh, especially looking at the non-negotiating principles that you have?
Absolutely. I think from my standpoint, like I said, I'm very passionate about execution.
Hmm.
Now, to me, when I talk about execution, it is about being able to progress. It's not about perfection. There will never be perfection. Let's admit it. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's being, one of the things that I really, one of the principles that I'm really passionate about is continue to make progress. That is important. Even if it is not perfect today, continue to make progress. And, which is good enough, and we'll get better, right? We'll come close to perfection. That is one. The second one from my standpoint is, holding everybody accountable for the outcomes we want people to deliver. uh, there needs to be accountability in the organization across all layers. uh, there needs to be trust across the organization. Without trust, I don't think the company will ever succeed. uh, I think those are really important principles, uh,
Mhm.
from my virtue. When you are leading a large team, those are non-negotiable. It needs to be there. It needs to be in the culture and DNA of the organization.
Yeah. So the last question here, Vivek, before we end is, when you look at the organizations that you have helped build, what would you like your colleagues and the teams to remember you for as a leader?
Interesting one. Uh, I think I want them to remember me first as a person who has made an impact on them personally, right?
Mhm.
When I say personally, I mean, if they remember me as someone who's helped them learn, grow, do meaningful work, enjoy the workplace, uh, build connections at workplace, uh, I think that is how I want people to remember me. Uh, if those are achieved, I'm certain the company's goals and priorities are met, because those are principles where people are happy. They like showing up. They like working with each other. They like collaborating. They have trust amongst each other. They're learning. They're growing. Uh, if all of those are taken care, those are perfect ingredients why a team how a team can make the company successful. They're
Mhm.
motivated set of people if these ingredients are in place. So yeah, I think that is what I have strived to do through my career. Doesn't mean I try to make people's jobs easy, but what it means is I like giving opportunities to people which will challenge them, which will make them think, which will bring them outside of their comfort zone, which will help them realize their own potential, and then contribute, and then really enjoy the success, the shared success of the team, of themselves, and of the organization. That brings meaning to every work that they do.
Mhm.
So
An
yeah,
ecosystem where
yeah,
learning, challenging, failing, doing, you have created those kind of an ecosystem throughout your career. And that is why I think people will always remember you for those ecosystem and the work that you have been delivering to Vivek. And with this, we come to the end of this conversation. Thank you so much for your time, Vivek.
I appreciate it, Anamika, for you to taking time and having to speak with me. And I've thoroughly enjoyed, everything you asked me today. It has also helped me reflect on my journey, quite honestly, uh, reflect on my leadership principles and my journey. So really appreciate the time that you've taken.
Thank you so much. Please take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.